Vice President of Public Safety here at Rapid SOS. As you know, Rapid SOS is an intelligent safety platform that securely links life-saving data to responders, monitoring centers, and the ECC during emergency situations. Now, we're extremely happy you're here with us today at Ready23. I know we've already had some great sessions with Michael and others, and I know it's been a fantastic learning experience already today. But we're going to lean out just a little bit further because we're going to talk with three experts today. Correction, two experts. One of them is out sick. First is Ron McCaddy, Senior Vice President of Real-Time Operations and GM for Europe R&D at Axon. And secondly is Keith Kelly, Deputy Chief of Athens Clark, Georgia. And we're missing Tangela Walker. She was supposed to join us today from Durham Emergency Communications in North Carolina. However, she is out with some sickness, and we definitely wish her a speedy recovery. So panelists, I'll start with both of you and just say, give me a little bit of background on what your roles are today as we get ready to lean in and talk about response to school safety. And Ron, I'll start with you, sir.
Thank you, and thank you for having me today. I want to start by just expressing gratitude to DC Kelly and the first responders on all the panels today and in the audience and around the world for the work that you do. I grew up in awe of the service you give to your communities, sometimes under very difficult circumstances. And so a couple of years ago, when I got the opportunity to join Axon, and lead a team, I jumped on the opportunity. It is my way of participating in that service that you give. And I'm privileged to lead a team at Axon that deal with development of real-time tools, the tools that are aiming to provide better information, more accurate information, more timely information for first responders who need to make critical decisions in real time. And that can range from helping the ECC with dispatch software and being able to have the information that can range with partnerships that bring additional fingertip-y information like location to the people who need them. That involves connected cameras and the ability to connect to those cameras in real time and both see where people are and interact with them, and other tools that we're working on. And I spend basically all day, every day, thinking about how I can shorten the lag between an information becoming available somewhere and the people who need to know knowing it in real time.
Very interesting, and I definitely appreciate you being here and Axon support of Ready23. Deputy Chief Kelly, give us a little bit of background about what you're doing there. I know Athens is a growing town. I know that I think you'll have like the third or fourth best football team in the SEC. I'm not saying Tennessee's better, but might be. But definitely give us some background on what you're doing there, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. So good afternoon. Thanks for having me. Appreciate everything that you and Rapid SOS does, as well as Axon. So I'm Keith Kelly. I'm Deputy Chief of Police in Athens, Clark County, Georgia. We're about 60 miles northeast of Atlanta and home to the University of Georgia and the two-time national champion Georgia Bulldogs. So we are a rapidly growing city, and I'm responsible for our Field Operations Bureau, which includes all patrol operations. And then kind of in a unique circumstances, we've placed our 911 Communication Center and Communications and Technology Division under my bureau. So we have dispatch and of all of our patrol operations under one umbrella. They report to me. I did serve for 15 years as the Communications and Technology Division Commander. I was the captain over the 911 Dispatch Center. I actually came up through the ranks there. And then also was responsible for all of the technological aspects of the department. So anything in the 911 center, but also body cameras, public safety cameras, drones, anything technology based, I had oversight on. So I've been in law enforcement for 26 years. I have a simultaneous career in fire and EMS for 27 years. So I'm able to look through the lenses of a 911 dispatcher, a police officer, firefighter, and EMT. So again, appreciate the opportunity to be here and look forward to the discussion.
That's excellent. I really appreciate your insights here because it's pivotal for this conversation. We're going to have a short discussion around the impacts of school-related incidents, both for our ECCs, our responders, and of course our communities. And to help that conversation, I'd like to kind of approach this from the flow of how that incident unfolds for the community. And let's start with the ECC. Now, we have learned through data, firsthand accounts, interviewing with ECCs, et cetera, and also working in the comm center, that incidents related to school safety and violence generate massive amounts of 911 calls and some order of magnitude of radio traffic as well. And when we're faced with the challenges of active assailants at schools, for an example, the ECC really becomes that epicenter of critical information. They're receiving the first information about the location of the callers, locations of maybe the assailant, what's occurring inside the school, are they in lockdown, sheltering, evacuating, whatever it may be. Conveying that information to the first responders in real time has really been kind of a difficult piece for us. And then once the response happens, how do we ensure that we're also protecting our responders during that event? Additionally, just having the responsibility to be able to notify command staff, responding agencies, schools, multi-agency or multi-jurisdiction response, right, from adjoining jurisdictions. At the heart of all that, sits a telecommunicator. That's a heavy burden to bear, and we think about that from how we approach this. And Keith, as you're being dispatched, let's say, to a potential active assailant on this campus, how important is having that accurate and actionable data from the ECC assisting you in that response phase as you approach that scene?
Well, that's really integral to the response. The communication center is really the pivotal point where all of the information comes in and then is pushed back out to the responders. So it's very important to us that we have accurate information, that information's coming in, it's being sorted through quickly, vetted, and then pushed out to the responders. And this is happening in very rapid paces. And it's important that they're able to get that right. Our responding officers are looking for information such as the location of the assailant or the threat or the shooter, location of the callers where they are, and then location of the units that are actually responding. And they are trying to connect the dots. The officers on scene are trying to connect the dots, but our dispatchers have the unique a view of where everything is and where everybody is located as this is occurring. There are also other factors such as our secondary responders that are responding to the scene. And when I say secondary, the police officers are going to move in, law enforcement, and stop the threat. But we also have needs for fire and EMS and other support services to come in, fire and EMS being first responders as well, to be able to provide care. So, but as we're responding, the police are looking for entry points. A lot of these school buildings can be very complex in how their layout is. So it's important that we're able to get information from the callers that tells us where the subject is that we're looking for, where potential victims are, the best entry points for our officers to get into the facility, and then where an individual is to be able to stop the threat. So we're looking for any digital tools that are available, anything that can help speed up that response, and then where to stage our fire and EMS units until we're able to make sure the scene is secure.
Yeah, that's very important points, right? Because we're responding to a location, a geographical location, where our most vulnerable and our most valuable population base is located, and that's for any given geography. So Ron, Keith brought up some interesting points related to monitoring personnel locations during these campus events, and sharing that information is incredibly important. Tell us how that plays into Axon's commitment to protect every life, because I know that's like the ethos for what you do there at the company.
For sure. And as I said in the introduction, I think our goal is to provide all of the information. Location is definitely an important part of it, as you know from all the great work you've done with ECCs around the country. But there's much more, right? When responders respond to an incident of this type, there's a lot that's going on, like DC Kelly has just mentioned. And what we're trying to do is make sure that they have the right tools and that those tools operate in the way that they should do while they're responding. So everything from making sure that you have a camera that can provide kind of a view of what's going on from different perspectives. And that camera has to be capable of, covering an entire shift and more, so that when that incident happens, even if it's at the end of your shift, you still have enough battery capacity and enough recording capacity so that you can cover this incident. Then you have to make sure that those cameras are actually recording. And when you're responding to an incident of this type, your first priority is to identify the threat and neutralize that threat. It's not to press buttons on your camera. And so how can we make it as simple as possible to use that camera? And in fact, we have recently also introduced solutions that automate that activation so that you can make sure that the camera just turns on when an officer is assigned to a particular class of incident. And so that gives you the information. And those cameras then provide location information, that situational awareness of knowing where your team is, both in the field and then at the ECC and in real-time crime centers for command staff. So having that full view of the location. Then the ability to actually connect to that camera and stream video from it so that you can get different perspectives on what's going on site and in the field. Or, if you think about a school incident, many of the schools have CCTV cameras, but it is too often, difficult to connect and access those CCTV cameras when you're responding to the incident. So how can you build the right system that enables both access to those systems, to those CCTV systems when you need it, but also the right protection and privacy for the community so that they can trust that those cameras are not being abused or misused. And so all of those come together to make the response better for all involved. And then finally, DC Kelly spoke about supporting services. And I think, as you said, when you introduced this section, radio traffic explodes when an incident like that happens. And so we're looking for ways to create additional communication channels so that you can bring in those supporting services into the incident without using up valuable radio time. And so, for example, we've recently introduced Axon Body 4, which has a communication channel built right into the camera.
Wow.
And that means that with a simple web link, you can send a web link to a supporting services professional, to a mental health advisor, which is dealing with an incident of this type, and they can hook directly into the video stream coming from the officer. And so they can support the officer in the field without having to have a radio, without tying up radio airtime, and be there to create a better outcome.
That's amazing. I can't wait to drill down that a little bit later in this conversation. This initial response is occurring, and Keith, in the comm center, I know you understand this. There's that initial call volume coming in, being handled by typically a call taker and the dispatcher, right? First unit to arrive on scene, and many times radio traffic kind of goes down for just a brief moment while they're clearing that facility. And again, that stress level on the dispatcher is tough because we don't know what's going on the scene in that moment. We may know they made entry, maybe they're clearing rooms. We don't know if our officers have been engaged with the suspect or not. Having that visual context of location in relation to the caller's location and the caller or with the officer or the threat is incredibly important. And so as units are moving into the building and they're advancing to the threat, or they're clearing rooms until the threat goes active again, how critical is it that we're able to take the information from the scene and the ECC and marry those things together to better protect officers in that battle space? And what do you feel is most important in that data point?
That's a great question. This is a rapidly developing situation that law enforcement's responding to. And I think the first thing is understanding the location of the callers gives them insights into the most current location of the assailant. And this can assist in how quickly they can move toward that individual and mitigate the threat, and also determine safe areas of the building where, emergency services may go ahead and start getting engaged potentially, depending on the agency's policies with regards to this response. The second thing is, planning and setting up exercises, utilizing a common operating picture is really crucial to the success of any critical incident, including this. And then we talk about this a lot in law enforcement partnerships. Ongoing effective partnerships with school systems is key to better outcomes. There's two-way communication. It's constantly occurring. Law enforcement is engaged with their partners, and it helps them have a better picture and working relationship if something happens.
That's a fantastic point, because in these incidents related to school safety and campus facilities, nobody responds alone. And typically it winds up being multi-agency, multi-jurisdictional. And while we may have been training locally for that facility, absolutely, but has the sheriff's department walked through it, highway patrol walked through it, the adjoining jurisdictions walked through it? Probably not. And so you talk about partnerships in that, right? That's incredibly important on the response side. But you also mentioned partnerships with the schools, partnerships with local government, et cetera. And Ron, come back to you. Partnerships with our vendor space is incredibly important in mitigating some of these outcomes in these critical moments. And I used a word earlier called ethos, and I know that's something that y'all love to talk about at Axon. Tell us about that ethos of partnerships with law enforcement and how that plays into how you develop solutions going forward.
Absolutely. I think there's a multi-layer view of partnerships that we take. First and foremost, it's our partnership with first responders, with our customers, and broader than that, to really make sure that we build the right tools that work under the right circumstances. And that is not something that a software engineer can do sitting in an office, kind of imagining what life is like out on the job. And so we have a close partnership with first responders everywhere to define and build the right tools. The second layer is helping really establish those partnerships and kind of support those partnerships that DC Kelly was talking about. How can we build the right tools to enable the connectivity between different agencies, between supporting services and so on, to just remove the friction that is inherent in coordinating between different agencies and different support services? And how can we bring tools in, like the one I talked about earlier, that can bring those different agencies together and more easily when you need it. And finally, I think, and maybe the place where we would love to have the most influence is industry partnership for technology providers in the public safety space. And I know if you sit in an ECC and you watch a dispatcher try and manage an incident of this type, there's enormous traffic, there's enormous load, there's need for making high judgment decisions with very little time to make those high judgment decisions. And yet, if you watch most of those dispatchers in most ECCs, they have to manage a multitude of tools and constantly switch their attention between those tools. And each one of those tools has a slightly different interface and provides slightly different portions of the data that they're looking at in order to enable them to make those decisions. And while that can seem trivial, as you kind of, if you look at it in a relaxed kind of way and you're just doing a tour of an ECC, it becomes a meaningful amount of friction when you're trying to make high velocity, high judgment decisions, and you need that information to make that decision. And so, so we've taken a view that we need to partner across the industry in order to enable and do even better for the officers in the field, for the dispatchers at the ECC, and for command staff. And as you know, we've joined forces with RapidSOS and a number of other partners in the industry to really create a way of exchanging that information between us and make sure that agencies can use the tools that they would prefer to use and still get all of the information that they need on a single surface. And so, as you know, in RapidSOS, you can now view location information that comes from Axon body cameras. And that's an early first example of what we'd like to enable in a much, much broader way. And so both bringing our information that we collect onto other viewing services and then bringing information that other partners collect onto our viewing surfaces like Axon Respond to provide each person, each role within an agency while they're responding to these type of incidents, the information they need on the surface that's most convenient for them at any point in time.
I love this. And you talk about just the location of officers during these incidents, or, if lose radio traffic, they're on the wrong channel. That never happens, right? And just being able to ascertain their location and make sure that, they are not in danger. And it's important for us. And I just spent last week at a soccer championship here in Tennessee. My daughter was playing in, and I was thinking about the complex that we were at and seeing the officers who were walking the complex, et cetera. And if we had, if we needed an EMS or we needed to have someone respond for, maybe an unruly parent, that might be me, having the officer location and tied to the information about where the caller's location is at as well is incredibly important for getting assets on that scene. And that's the changing technology that we have in public safety. So, Deputy Chief Kaylee, I'll come back to you right quick. What would you like to see? Like, what's your vision for this, correlation emergency response? Maybe in the next 5 or 10 years, what would you like to see happen to protect not only the responders, but also the public better?
Well, I think looking forward 5 or 10 years, certainly there's technologies that we haven't thought of yet that are coming out. But the things that immediately come to mind really are three main points. The first one is better integration with technologies that are already at the school. So camera technology, and how do we get that to our officers faster? So when these situations happen, there's generally, your first officers that get on scene, and how do we get information back to them quickly so they're not in that fact-finding mode as much.
Yeah.
But also, I guess with that, the second point is not overwhelming them with information. They still need to look at what's ahead and what they're dealing with, but there needs to be some kind of way to funnel information to them. And I guess the third point is any situational awareness technologies that can be sent to the officers, or tools that really could flow in some communities through a real-time crime center. I know in my own jurisdiction, that's something we're bringing online right now, but getting that information where then it can be vetted or organized and then put out to the responders that way. So basically, how do we get things to our initial response? What does that look like? And then what's the, as more response keeps coming, what are other tools that can be used for the officers to help really identify where people are, where the threat is, and move in faster to them, but keep the officer safe as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that Ron mentioned earlier just the call volume, and not uncommon at all to see an increase in call volume in these instances for the first hour to be orders of magnitude. And I mean 20, 25, 30,000% increases for that first hour of this incident. And that's a lot of data coming in. And probably the majority of those calls don't yield any actionable data related to the incident, right? It's, I hear something, I see people running, etc. And then, how do you wade through all that data? Today, it's almost impossible. The very near future, things such as AI and understanding this from a larger standpoint of where that data is flowing in, but we're, maybe we're sourcing that data and screening that data to elevate the things that are most important for us, that are actionable items for us, is literally just months away. And that's incredible. And Ron, I know this really probably plays into where you want to go in R&D, right? Research and development. So how would you like to see public safety change, maybe from how Axon can impact that, or just overall when it relates to school safety in the next 5 years?
Sure. I like DC Kelly have misplaced my crystal ball, so I hate to imagine what will actually happen in 5 or 10 years, because every time I've tried to do that, I've been wrong. And so, but I think, jokes aside, I think a lot of the future is actually already here. We just need to start using it. And prevalence of CCTV cameras, right? They exist. They exist. It's access to them that's missing. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not creating new technology or magical stuff. It's the technology of today. Body-worn video exists today. Right? I'd love to get that to a point where it's utilized nearly 100% of the time. Right? And it's not today. It's very far from that today. And not because of lack of desire and intent. It's just we need to get better at both creating the devices that enable that to happen all of the time, creating the policies that enable that to happen all of the time, and creating technologies that supports those policies and enforces those policy over time and monitors those policy over time. And that in itself, just utilizing that type of technology that already exists today, I think will take us a significant leap forward compared to where we are today. But if I had to venture kind of slightly out further into the future, I think the first thing is kind of extrapolation of what I said earlier. I think it's really us as an industry doing even better at creating simplified experiences. I think information, as you mentioned, there's a lot of data. And just presenting that data can get more confusing than helpful if you're not careful. right? And these are high velocity, high severity incidents where what you don't want to do is stare at your phone or tablet or MDT and try and analyze a bunch of data. You want to be responding to the incident. And so how can we help qualify that data and reduce the amount of data that's presented in a way that's more digestible, in a way that's more graphical, in a way that's more glanceable, so that you can at a glance see what's going on. And I think there'll be a bunch of investment from Axon, but from others as well, as to how do you visualize a significant amount of data. When you're getting that large call volume, like really building tools that help you understand which of those will contain new information and which one of those are just duplicative of other information that you already have, right? That's the call volume doesn't all contain new information. So how can we build those tools that help the people involved, the first responders, the dispatchers, and every command staff kind of visualize the data better and make better decisions as a result?
I love that, right? And it is right. It's not every call doesn't yield data that actually makes a decision or gets in the decision-making process in that call. And now there are probably 2 or 3 other sessions coming up here at Ready23 this afternoon and tomorrow related to school safety and how that decision tree is changing based upon those data points and injections. I would say the one thing I'm looking forward to probably the most in the very near future is not just location of officers and the potential of watching the body-worn camera if applicable. I want to know when they draw a service weapon or when they draw a taser. And I want that to come into the comm center so I know immediately what's going on. So in case those moments to where there's not radio traffic associated with it and they walk into a situation where it's immediate, I immediately know that my officers are in trouble, right? And I also can dispatch resources to that location much quicker. And for us, I think that's life-saving for us.
100%. And again, that technology exists today. And
yes.
What are the challenges? Adoption of that technology and make sure that the information is presented at the place where someone is paying attention. And I think again, that's what I love about the partnership between us is that I think it just brings those data points to more places where they're more digestible by more of the people who need to know, and therefore increases safety for everyone involved.
Ron, Keith, thank you so much for your time today. I know it's been very short. We covered a lot of territory in the few minutes that we've had here. We definitely look forward to continued partnerships. I think that's the most important thing, and probably one of the primary reasons I love working for Rapid SOS. It's the fact that we blend together partnerships from all across public safety space. So we ensure the safety of our citizens and our responders and the long-term mental health of our telecommunicators as well. So thank you both so much for being here today. For the rest of the folks here, if you'd like to get in contact with me, it's jpvhouse@rapidsos.com. You can find me on LinkedIn as well as our wonderful panelists today to ask more questions. Feel free to drop them in the chat, and we'll see you at the next session here at Ready23 coming up in about 3 minutes. See y'all soon. Thanks.
Thank you.